Hi, Mary Beth with Thorngren Studio Arts, here to teach you the next lesson, our second in the series of From the Garden. Today we're going to do a hibiscus. I have this beautiful pink and white swirl hibiscus that I met a new neighbor. Her name's Nellie, and Nellie let me come this morning and pick one out for you guys, and it's just so pretty, and I just can't wait to get started. So, I've already tinted my canvas. I have an 8 by 10 canvas, tinted it a very, very light blue. And so what I did with my light blue, I watered it down very much. So I just was pretty much just covering the white. That was my objective. So with that, you can pause now and get started. I've already penciled in the hibiscus. I took a photo of it and enlarged it from a top view. It's what we call a bird's eye view because we're looking down on it. I thought we would try to evoke the spirit of Georgia O'Keeffe. If you remember, we had done some paintings in her style where she blew up the florals, the flowers, and forced you to see all the beauty and the details. She said that not everybody ever does look at a flower as closely, and that's why she blew up her images so that you could see them large and enjoy the beauty. So let's get started, remembering that we start from the top to the bottom and the back to the front. I've taken my flower off the edges and just really focusing in right here. I did a little sketch, quick study, so you can get the idea of the way the colors are going to flow. We're going to start with the light blue. I'm going to use just a medium brush. Light blue, pulling it out to the middle. Got a bunch of white here. I'm just going to mix those two and get a better coverage on my background. I'll get a little more on there. Around in the negative space, remembering that the negative space is the space around the positive, and the positive space is our hibiscus. Nice coverage there. And then you can go ahead and sketch your flower or use pencil. Today I used pencil because I wanted to make sure that I got all the veins in each petal. It's very detailed. And a little more coverage. Okay, so I still have that light blue, and I'm just going to dip it into my deep violet. Just a tiny dip. I'm going to bring that out to the middle and mix. A little bit more. Creating kind of a periwinkle. I'm going to dip that in the water, and what I'm going to do is keep this very fluid, just like my wash that I did initially. And then I'm going to quickly go in and find all the areas that have some shadow in each petal very quickly. I'm painting over those sketchy lines. This is fluid enough where I can still see them. And I'm paying attention to where things overlap. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 petals. So I'm bringing this light purple shade where the petal rests. I'm already starting to achieve a little bit of depth. I'm drying out. I'm going to get a little more water. It's a very loose watercolor approach to this acrylic painting. Just piecing it in. Sketching. Sketching with paint. some pools of water of the paint and water mixture on my canvas, and that's good because I'm going to try to take advantage of that. Now I'm going to dip a little in the water and I'm going to head back into the white. Mixing that out. Getting a little more paint on my brush this time, and now I'm going to go back in and place where I see the whites, taking advantage of the wetness of the purple, not all the way into the purple, just where I see the whites, softening up some of the lines of the purple wash, just very quick. A little more. It's nice to have a second reference when you have the still life in front of you. And really get up close, and you know, a lot of times it really helps if you feel it, because if you can feel how delicate those petals are, you can almost visualize them as you're working, because that's what we want to. And that's why really we're not using so much paint this time. We don't want a chunky looking flower. Hibiscus. Very airy, very light. Paying attention to where the lighter parts are on the edges. And I'm giving a little more oomph, a little more paint. Heavier on my strokes. This one's going to go by really quickly. Okay. Now, the next step, I think I'll pull off my white on my brush. And I'm going to, I have this brush, it's an angled brush. And if you have one of these in your painting kits, they work really well for lining, creating a nice sharp line. And you use it as an angle. I'm going into this pink, which is a brilliant magenta. I'll load that up pretty good. And now I'm just gonna trace over my pencil lines where all these veins are in the each petal. Very lightly. They appear heavier and thicker toward the middle of the flower. So if you start from the middle and work outwards, pressing dark more in the middle and lighten up your pressure on your brush, a lot of painting is in your wrist and your arm. Up. I can still see all my little pencil lines. That's good. And if you keep, when you're making a line, if you keep your paint fluid, it's easier to get a good line. Start to feel that drag. You can hear it even on the canvas. That's when you need more paint and a little bit more water. You don't want to get too much water. And you get the drips. Pulling these strokes outward in the direction of the petal. magenta, and I'm just gonna come around in the middle here. It's very concentrated toward that middle. Just kind of that there. Don't even have to pull off my brush. I'm gonna head to the next, which is a deep magenta and my deep violet. Mixing those two. And I'm painting around the penciled lines of the middle part of this hibiscus. I'm just kind of plopping it in and go back into that and soften up. So let's say I don't really like that hard edge, because if I look closely I can see that it's a gradient edge. It's very soft as it flows into the next. So I'm going to pull off my color on my brush, and I can go back in if I work fast enough and just soften that, bringing it out into the first layer of the pink. Very soft. I'm going to wash I better hold off first, keeping my water clean. I'm going to go into the white. I'm going to pump up all these whites again, because you're going to keep them nice and crisp. Got a pretty good amount on my brush, and I can smooth down those edges after I just go over the whole thing. This petal on top of that one, giving a nice crisp edge, painting in between the veins. Petals on top, and giving it also a good crisp. Just putting the color down where I see it. Keeping it simple. I can go back on top of these and just lightly smoothing it out. Okay. I've got white still. There's like 4 little tiny pieces of green where the bottom of the flower that you can see through. Got some white on my brush already. I'm pulling out green. I'm going to pull out a little bit of yellow. Those back into the yellow. I pulled off the green. Then I'm going to add a little white. little dabs. I already have a few little dabs of purple that are creating the negative space. Yellow being my positive. It's nice to have them kind of mixing together. Not so concerned about getting the exactness, just the feel of it. Now I'm going to see where I need more contrast. I still need some more dark. I'm just taking a straight violet and get some real depth in here in the center. Off this, and in my sketch I pulled off just amount and a little bit of water, and I can go back and give a little more accent to where some of these overlappings happen. It's real important what's on top and what's on bottom. Softening up edges where I need. Still needs more oomph. Really give that a deep center. And what I did with my initial sketch there, I still had a little bit of that deep purple on there, and I went back in and just kind of dry brushed, sketchy lines into the background, and then I took a little bit of blue on top of that, mixing it on the canvas. Your background should be just as equally as interesting as your foregrounds and your middle grounds. Don't be afraid to try some different things in your background. You don't have to do you could do any color really. I like to do a little bit of dark around light so that it really pops. Then I can always adjust and give it a little bit more light. Places. So as always, this is my initial painting. I will go back in and refine and smooth out some edges. You know, I'm not too fond of this middle piece. I had taken a dry brush and tried to replicate all of the little spots, and I just dabbed it all on there, and then I can soften that up again. So that's probably what I'll do. Now now you're going to see my assistant Adrienne and her approach to the hibiscus flower. Thank you so much for joining us.